My friends, we are just coming on live now, so I'm going to give this a few minutes to get folks on stream. It has been a few minutes since y'all have seen me on live, so I'm very excited to be back. Just monitoring the stream here on my phone. I am still a little new to this, knocking the rust off where I can. Also got to ping out to folks that we are live. This is also the first time I'm simulcasting both horizontally and vertically on YouTube. So, Rody, welcome, brother. Naturally, the live chat is probably not going to work at the beginning of the stream on stream, so my apologies for that. But while we get some critical mass on stream, I hope you all had a wonderful holiday weekend with your friends or family, by yourself. Holiday weekend, holiday week, really, between Christmas and New Year's. I'm just getting myself configured here before we get into the initial topics. For some reason, YouTube is not reporting back any viewership data to me. So that's super fun. I may need to just rely on what the YouTube public information is, because with this simulcast between vertical and horizontal, I don't know if it knows how to report to me. My friend was testing Ecamm the other night and was pulling chat from both streams so he can interact with both streams at the same time. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to do that just yet. Folks, if you're watching on shorts, please let me know. Or if you're watching on horizontal, traditional live stream, please let me know. It would be cool to see how or if this is working. Just give me one moment while I quickly try to troubleshoot why the on-screen chat is yet again not working. One moment on that. I'm going to refresh the window and perhaps that will bring the chats in. That doesn't seem like it worked. We've got a really fun stream lined up for us today. Obviously, I was out for a couple weeks, and I'll just kind of jump into where I've been. Is this not okay? So where has TJ been? So unfortunately, I was fairly sick a couple weeks back. I had to call out sick from the stream, and then I got sick again with something else. I've got young kids; they're bringing home constantly, but I have been very busy in the meantime, working on another project, which is this above me. This is the future for where I'll be streaming and doing content creation. It should also helpfully allow for me to do more of it because I'll have a dedicated space. What you're looking at is a shed. It's a shed that I'm converting into a studio slash office space that I should hopefully be in full time in just about 2 months. I've actually made a lot of progress on it since this photograph that's above me. But it's gonna, I still have to paint it, put flooring in, all these other things, but it's wired up for data. We've got power, finalizing the HVAC. So I'm very excited about being in this space so that while I'm in there, I can focus on content creation and not disturbing my family and having that creative flexibility, which is great. Also, I didn't stream last week because last week was Christmas and was spending time with the family. So I didn't want to be able to pull away from that. So I appreciate y'all's patience with that. Have missed doing this and will continue to do this. Looks like I've got Claude troubleshooting my stream issues right now, and I'm also going to blast out on Discord that I am live and on the Twitter at everyone. I'm not going to bother simulcasting on X anymore, or Twitch. For one, streaming on X doesn't really get that much viewership in my experience, and the API is really bizarre. So I'm not going to bother putting my stream up there anymore until they figure out that ecosystem. So I'm not going to pay for verified anymore. That's the only reason why I did. Or Twitter Blue. And then Twitch, I don't get Twitch. You really need to put crazy hours into just making a dent in Twitch. So I'm not going to bother really with getting that out there. It's just it's too much work. So we're just gonna keep it simple. We're just gonna stream to YouTube. I may try expanding to Facebook, but 99% of my viewers are on YouTube, and I honestly just enjoy YouTube like just way more. So so if anybody was watching me on X or looking there, sorry, I'm not gonna bother doing that just for now. Oh, it looks like the stream is now working. So, hi, Rody, you have made it back in stream. Not quite sure why that didn't work, but we that's the nature of the beast here. Oh, okay. Is that perspective distorted or different shape room? It's a rectangular room. I just did the pano on here, so it kind of looks a little funky. But I will say it's a standard room. So it's like 9 1/4 feet by 13 1/3 feet. It's not a huge space, about 120 some odd square feet. But it is definitely something that I will be able to focus my creativity in. So, and hi, Tony. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all of you. We've got a fun year ahead of us in spaceflight. I am, I'm so excited for this year. We've got Artemis II. We've got Starship, so much Starship. Allegedly, like 20 Vulcan flights. We'll see about that. Blue Moon. And then also Electron, Rocket Lab with Neutron hopefully making its first flight this year. They're saying that Neutron will be stacked this quarter. I highly doubt that. There's been some interesting imagery that's come out the last couple weeks. The fairing is still on a cargo ship working its way from New Zealand to get to Virginia. The first stage tanks were actually seen for the first time today in Maryland, but it is far from being even close to a finished booster. So, but I am looking forward to seeing that all come together out at Wallops. And when there's more hardware out there, I'll venture out to try to get some imagery, and maybe we can do a stream out there and see what is happening, because it's an exciting time. All right, so let's hop on in. There's the biggest potential news of the week. Let's actually cut back to me here really quick. All right, so the biggest news of the week, we don't talk about Bruno, but we're going to talk about Bruno. Tory Bruno of United Launch Alliance fame has made a unprecedented jump, I think, that we've seen in space. And that's also perhaps dictating what we're seeing of the times. So Tory Bruno, he was the CEO of United Launch Alliance for 17 years and saw the largest transformation of that company or even not even that company, for Boeing and Lockheed Martin ever. And there's some interesting history here that I thought people would find fascinating about Tory, about United Launch Alliance, and how we've arrived here today. I'm a bit quiet. Thanks for giving me a heads up. Let me actually crank this up for y'all. Let me know if that audio is better. Thank you, Anarchy. So, United Launch Alliance, let's back it up here, because when you start seeing the interwoven history here and how Tory Bruno, which, newsflash, is now at Blue Origin. He is somebody who, for the better part of 30 years, worked in, Tory at least, worked in Department of Defense not for the Department of Defense, but a variety of different companies, on THAAD, on the Trident missile system, on all of these really pivotal and incredibly important to national security missile systems, for a variety of different companies. Okay, super trusted name in the business. I believe one of his bigger numbers is like he did 150 perfect Thor test launches, which is something that he's known for being extremely rigorous and detail oriented, and does not settle for anything less than perfection, right? So that maybe that doesn't necessarily account for, maybe building scalable commercial rockets, but when it comes to reliability and trust, Tory knows his stuff. Okay. United Launch Alliance, before Tory even came on board, was this weird conglomerate between Boeing and Lockheed Martin, to create one company to basically ensure that they can make money flying rockets. The problem was they each had their own rocket booster systems, and with Atlas and Delta, Atlas being a was that a Lockheed product, and Delta being Boeing. Essentially they in the 90s and early 2000s, hey Marcus, essentially during the 90s and early 2000s, they were bidding for the same national security launches from the DoD, but there were so few launches, it was hard for them to make any kind of money. Essentially, there might be 10 launches a year, 7 launches a year or something, and so each company would get 3 launches, 4 launches. And so the cost per launch for these companies was just insane. Like $500, $400 million per launch, because the launch cadence was just so painfully low. So it all basically came to a head around, I want to say around 2003, when there was a big lawsuit between Boeing and Lockheed Martin, suing Boeing because this Boeing employee stole information that they were poached from Lockheed to Boeing, and they brought proprietary information, and it was a big lawsuit. But other than that, these companies basically told the Department of Defense, we can't run this business anymore. There's too few launch. We've built these rockets for you, and there's no commercial business right now that can really sustain us. We might have a couple launches a year from commercial, but our profit margins are so small. So what they ended up doing was they created one company that they could streamline some of that business through, and try to make it more affordable, but also be able to strong arm the Department of Defense here to be like, hey, we're gonna create one entity, United Launch Alliance, and you basically just have to buy all the launches through that company, and we will be able to provide launch to you, but that you pay us a minimum every year for the guarantee that we can provide you with launch services, and then there'll be an additional fee per launch, right? So if you don't launch at all this year, you still pay us $500 million. But if you fly 12 times this year, you'll pay us $700 million, right? They wanted to make sure that they could receive a minimum amount of money so that they could make a profit, right? And this is a whole different era of the aerospace business. So with that being said, there was no SpaceX on the scene, right? SpaceX didn't come on the scene really until 2010 with Falcon 9. There was NASA had the space shuttle, so ULA was not, but Boeing and Lockheed were really not getting many NASA flights. They were flying as much as they could on shuttle at the time. And there was the smaller, hey Zoltan and hey Marcus and Rhodey, everybody, thanks for hopping in the chat. That NASA was flying on some of their vehicles, but largely flying on shuttle. So ULA was it. They didn't have to worry about coming down on cost because the DoD was floating them for the capability. Okay, so level set that, right? Tory comes on board in 2017 and was challenged with, not 2017, 17 years ago, and was challenged with finding ways to reduce costs even more, right? So I think in the first couple of years he came on board, he cut the stat. He did like 25% ULA got laid off or something of that nature. And one of their fundamental issues, which you could probably get a sense of here, is that they had 2 different rockets, which means that they needed 2 pads in Florida, and they needed 2 pads in Vandenberg. So this one company had 2 different rockets, and they needed to sustain 4 different pads and also 2 different production lines and 2 different locations. Oh, and Atlas was sourcing its engines from Russia, which was also illegal. And Delta was crazy expensive to fly and really only existed for these crazy hard to reach, like geosynchronous geosynchronous orbits that I think the DoD wanted to fly like 6-ton payloads to that orbit. Anyways, so Tory came on board and started trying to figure out how we make one rocket, so we need half the pads, only one assembly line, and can do all the capabilities of these 2 rockets, hence Vulcan being born, right? But this was all happening, him trying to get Vulcan behind the scenes moving was all happening while SpaceX came on board around 2010 flying Falcon 9 when they initially got NASA's commercial resupply CRS missions, and at the time they were not reusable. But that's around when, I think it was 2014, they sued the Air Force to be like, hey, you're not giving us any DoD contracts. We're flying NASA missions, cargo missions, and we're starting to pick up some private, I think they had Iridium. They were getting some private flights because they were so much cheaper than ULA at the time, even though they weren't reusable. And the Department of Defense didn't have a leg to stand on because they were putting in competitive bids, and the DoD was not essentially giving them a time of day. So they lost the lawsuit and they got GPS flights, and it's been history from there because now I believe it's like a 50-50 split or roughly that between ULA and SpaceX missions. And ULA essentially has been getting missions because the Department of Defense wants redundancy regardless of how SpaceX is. They want multiple rocket redundancy, which is one of the reasons why they were fine with ULA, because they had Atlas and Delta. So if something happened with one of them, they still have a backup rocket to fly on, right? So it's all this really weird context, right? All the while, Tory is trying to get Vulcan up to speed, working, right? So he needs to create a whole new assembly line for his company, maintain Atlas, maintain Delta, find ways to off-ramp them in a way that makes sense, that doesn't scare away the Department of Defense, and create a cheaper rocket, more capable rocket, so that they can also get these commercial customers, right? Which he did. I think he sold like 60 launches on Vulcan. With that, his company, it's all about the Tory show, but like under his stewardship, they sold like 60 launches under Vulcan, like crazy numbers, right? Not really crazy in terms of like SpaceX scale. I mean, SpaceX flew like 165 times this year, I think. The vast majority of that being Starlink, but that's like a whole other story. Better than ULA, who flew a couple times this year. Regardless, Tory has also had to deal with something else that SpaceX has not had to deal with, which is they had to basically adhere to Boeing and Lockheed's management, and all these major decisions had to go through these 2 mega corporations with their own bureaucracy, right? So could you imagine what somebody with his skills and knowledge and expertise would have been able to do with less strings and being actually able to move where the puck's going, right? So Vulcan, 167 launches for SpaceX. Thank you, Anarchy / Bina. The Vulcan is not a bad rocket. Vulcan is a super capable rocket. It's got a large fairing. It can hit all kinds of crazy orbits. It's got the flexibility that Atlas had with adding on all the SRBs. It's got the incredibly efficient Centaur upper stage. Where it's going to hurt is on the lack of reusability, and that's something that everybody knows now. But when Vulcan was in early development 10 years ago, they didn't fully register that this rocket was going to be behind the 8 ball in the way that it is. They also partnered with, and here's Mr. Bezos here, with Blue Origin for the BE-4 engines for the first stage of Vulcan, which at the time was a bit risky. The Aerojet Rocketdyne was bidding, I think it was the AR-1 engine or something, to be the Vulcan first stage. But as we know with Aerojet, they are not cheap, have never really been cheap, and Blue Origin was offering them a ULA sweet deal to say, hey, we will pay for all the development of the BE-4. You're just buying the engine, right? And ULA's like, that's great. Aerojet Rocketdyne was not going to offer them that kind of deal, right? So they got cheaper engines. With a bugaboo ended up being that they were very delayed. I think like several years delayed. So that wasn't great. So now that Vulcan is certified for national security launches, Vulcan is maybe not done. There's upgrades that the rocket is going to have into the future. You know, smart reuse being allegedly one of the biggest ones. And other finessing and improvements to the rocket. It's Tory has delivered what he set out to do 17 years ago. Okay, he sold a ton of he and his company has sold a ton of launches to fill up the manifest. They've created one new rocket for the future. They've offline Atlas, or not. They've offline Delta. They're on the roadmap to offline Atlas. So he as he said, he set out what he did. So last week, or a little over a week ago, Tory just puts in that he put in his resignation at ULA, which to most people was very surprising. I was surprised. I mean, I don't know. Seemed like he had really made a good thing there and did a good thing there and was making some great progress for them, and with the context of all of that, because now ULA has had to pivot from just being a sole supplier to the Department of Defense to like, okay, yeah, there's SpaceX, but there's so many other companies now on the scene, and that are going to continue to eat into into their business, into their market share. You know, obviously, okay, you got SpaceX. Okay, then you have Blue Origin. Oh, okay, you've got Rocket Lab. Those are just the American companies. Oh, we've got Vast, right? Firefly. And then, Lockheed Martin. What, like, with their rockets that they're developing, Eclipse, flying out of Wallops, their medium lift vehicle that they want to compete and get bids for in the commercial space. So it's like, bro, what is going on? But here's the real kicker. Here's the real fun kicker. Blue Origin, when they were negotiating with ULA was like, hey, okay, we'll go with you, but you can't bid on national security missions. We want that part of the market. You go to the moon, go and make your, low Earth orbit space stations, and Mr. Bezos, you go do whatever you want to do, but don't touch national security launches. That's our bailiwick. Blue Origin was like, that's fine, like we will stay away from that. you buy the engines from us, we'll stay away, and we'll go and we'll do our thing and work with NASA and all the stuff that Jeff wants us to do. That's not happening anymore. A few years ago, Blue Origin backed out of that handshake agreement. It was like, yeah, you know what? We're going to start bidding on national security missions with New Glenn, and I believe they've won 7 missions now, of which those 7 would have very likely gone to ULA. So that's not great, and there's been some public riffing, back and forth with Tory and Blue Origin about the late engines and these national security deals, contracts. But Vulcan and ULA and Tory haven't necessarily been perfect. Vulcan's flight cadence is super low, and the Space Force, of general from the Space Force, said that they are disappointed in Vulcan because of the low flight rate and how the backlog, essentially, that they have now to fly on the rocket. But we don't know why that's happening. That's all, behind the scenes. But it's public facing. It's obvious that they're not flying as often as they should, and everyone's pointing fingers at each other. Regardless of that, Tory submits his letter of resignation, and then 4 days later, it's announced that he is now the president of a new department at Blue Origin. That's essentially he's going to be the point person for securing national security contracts for New Glenn. Like, he now has jumped ship to a real player in the defense. Obviously, in defense, they've got 7 contracts, but also in capabilities with New Glenn 7x2 and 9x4. 9x4 coming online in the next few years. There's one other detail here that I'm trying to knock off the rust. We've got him jumping ship to Blue. Oh, okay. Fun fact, also, Blue Origin tried to buy ULA multiple times, and Lockheed and Boeing wouldn't sell. Why they wouldn't sell, we're not sure. Maybe they didn't offer them enough money. We know Rocket Lab looked into buying ULA. There's a lot of reasons why these companies might want to buy them. Blue Origin might just want to buy them to get their manifest and maybe their some of their facilities and staff members. I can't imagine they would want Vulcan. Rocket Lab, potentially the same thing. Hi there. Hello from hey GageN 8DB. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your name, but I hope everything is well in Diamond Bar, California. Thanks for tuning in. So Blue Origin tried to buy ULA multiple times. They've offered Tory jobs multiple times, and this never came to be. So whatever has happened, we don't know if maybe things soured with Tory and his leadership, and he was like, it's time for me to go, or Blue Origin just made him an offer he couldn't refuse, which is very possible with the budgets and potential that company has. So Tory is now with Blue Origin, which, man, if you're a fan of Blue, like, this is a big get for them, considering what he was able to accomplish with the competitive landscape of the marketplace, with the demands of his leadership with Boeing and Lockheed, who have been traditional, like, old space, right? And then trying to create a third rocket while maintaining 2 others. It's a lot. So kudos to Mr. Bruno. And that's not to say that ULA is dead and ULA is not going to is just going to go away. ULA is gonna fight here. It's a incredibly profitable business, defense launches. Boeing and Lockheed are obviously really want to maintain that revenue stream. So they need to find ways. They need to find a way to get out of this. So whether it's reduce the cost of launches so that they can make more competitive bids, or fast track smart and see if that can actually provide for cheaper launch. But really, what's going to be their best friend on the competitive landscape side of things is to increase their launch cadence so that they can fly more and then have a reduce their cost per launch there. It's interesting. Amazon Leo has a ton of launches on Vulcan. We don't hear much about Amazon Leo. I'm curious why they're not flying more right now. That's going to be a huge part of the Amazon revenue stream and market influence in the future. So I'm very surprised that they haven't been flying that more on Vulcan. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next several years with ULA and how they offline Delta and or offline Atlas. And so that's the story with Mr. Bruno. I'm happy for him. This, we may see more high profile changes in leadership in the future, and this is something that has happened in all levels of business, and I'm sure has happened at different levels of the executive level in aerospace. But from a CEO to be poached like this, to my knowledge, is a first at this level. So congratulations to Tory and to Blue Origin on their get. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts though about this jump? I would love to hear from the chat what you all think about Tory jumping ship here and what potentially could happen. Obviously the biggest win here for Blue Origin is going to be they start securing even more national security launches. One, the like bugaboo that from what I kind of understand with New Glenn is that it doesn't really offer the same level of like accuracy that Centaur can. So now that could be potentially resolved with this third stage they're going to be onlining, which may be hydrogen. Because Methalox has its drawbacks there. Anarchy says, I was wondering what Rocket Lab would even do with ULA. My hunch was to buy it for the manifest for Neutron. And just, or fly out Vulcan and then move everything to Neutron, right? Just buy them to just remove a competitor from the chessboard. Remove a piece from the chessboard. That would be my guess. Because they have very lucrative contracts with Department of Defense and with Leo. And then all of a sudden, boom, you've filled out your manifest for several years with your new rocket system. Although I believe like the fully built out Vulcan has more mass to Leo than Neutron in an expendable form. There's also pairing differences there, but that would be my hunch. I wonder if he's going to bring more of the Ferociter into BO. I hope so. I hope he does. They need to be a bit more aggressive. We were the Blue Origin was saying that they were going to be flying their Blue Moon flight with the last mission's first stage, and from what I understand, that's not going to happen now. They're going to fly on a fresh stage for Blue Moon Mark 1, which is cool. Which I suppose it would have been very ambitious of them to do that, but yeah, Blue Origin needs to fly more too. But I think we're going to see, we saw 2 flights last year of New Glenn, so hey, maybe we'll see 4 this year. And we're actually going to get into spaceflight numbers in a little bit here. For folks just joining, thanks for hanging out. If you're watching from YouTube verticals, let me know. I'd be really curious to see who is finding this stream from where. It is my first time on YouTube streaming both horizontally and vertically, like simulcasted. I wish I could share the view that I have right now with you all, but it's essentially streaming both vertically and horizontally. I don't know how this necessarily works, but it is. And I'm on my phone. I'm trying to understand how this works. But yeah, we're live right now on both vertical and horizontal. I'll stop boring you with those details. All right, so Jared Isaacman. Okay, yeah, so I was gone for a couple weeks, and we now finally have a real life NASA administrator, which is exciting. Jared, it's been, I don't know, I guess it's been a kind of a busy few weeks for Jared. Let's bring up his little guy here. So Jared, he's made a variety of different press. He's been in the media. He's been flying around to NASA centers, meeting people, and telling people, you know, there's nothing to worry about right now. Continue with the mission as planned, but there's going to be some reorganization. Trying to flatten the org chart at NASA. Try to remove as much of the bureaucracy and middle management-ness of things as he can, so that they can potentially do more with less. And then also been basically on the big press tour for Artemis II and trying to make sure people are excited about Artemis II. He did have some very cool, I would say, media hits recently I wanted to highlight. But there was one he did with CNBC last week at some point. And there's two clips that I wanted to watch with you all because I thought that they were interesting. So one is on data centers in space, and the other is on a story very close to my heart, which is space shuttle Discovery and the potential future of Discovery. So let's cut over to what Jared had to say. I'm going to completely botch this. Let's make sure. Interview. Nope. Oh, duh. I have to enable this. Okay.
What are your thoughts on data centers in space, especially given the fact that we've seen the commercialization of low Earth orbit in part from previous NASA policy?
Okay, so I love this. Establishing an orbital economy is key. You know, I've had a chance to meet with President Trump many times. This is captured in the national space policy. We're completely aligned around this. Number one priority, American leadership in the high ground of space. We got to return to the moon, establish the enduring presence, realize scientific, economic, and national security value. We got to make investments in nuclear spaceships, bring nuclear power to space so we can set up for that next giant leap to Mars and beyond. Number two, we need the orbital economy. And that's specifically called out in the national space policy. We all envision a future someday with lots of space stations and mining and commercial operations on the moon and an outpost on Mars. It's not going to happen if it's perpetually funded by the taxpayers. We need to unlock that orbital economy, whether it's data centers in space, if it's biotech, or cancer treating drug formulations, or mining helium-3 on the moon. Whatever it is, we need it. That's what's going to fund that exciting future. And number three, increase the rate of world-changing discoveries. We all love Hubble and James Webb Telescope and rovers on Mars. We just need a lot more of them with greater frequency so we can unlock the secret.
What are your thoughts on data centers?
Okay, so a couple things he said there at the end that were interesting, but he mentioned, okay, building out the space-based economy, which is happening whether NASA supports it or not, because there's money to be made. But he mentions data centers in space. Okay. He mentions, you know, science and development, technology, cancer research. And then third, he mentions, you know, we need more Hubbles, more James Webb Space Telescopes, more Curiosity rovers, whatever. Well, really, NASA's involved in like 1.5 of that, kind of. Definitely more rovers. So that's really the place that they can. I'm sorry. I'm getting over a cough. That's really a place that they can play ball in, is, you know, getting more payloads for exploration, right? Scientific research happening on the space station. They're doing those tests, but no real manufacturing products at scale. But that is a part of the economy, our global economy, which there's a lot of money in research with drug companies. So NASA needs to find a way to show these companies that this is a lucrative endeavor for them to participate on private space stations and build out manufacturing, right? That is not going to happen in this term. But they can lay down the tracks. But the one thing, whether people has a lot of people have opinions on this one way or another, it's data centers in space, right? It's a controversial topic for a lot of different reasons, and I'm not really quite sure why. Okay, so from a logistics standpoint, and Scott Manley has brought this up a couple different times about data centers in space, like how the idea of having one massive structure in Leo that's like just this crazy big data center is a nice idea, but from like a maintainability standpoint is very, very hard. That when you have a massive structure, maintaining stability of that thing is treacherous. It obviously can shake itself apart, and you can have this crazy Kessler syndrome type of experience where it nukes itself. So, data centers in space might be a constellation of a bunch of smaller ones, but you can, use optical or laser communication between them and have super low latency comms from that respect. And why do people like this? Is because you can have 24/7 or close to 24/7 sunlight up there, and it could potentially really reduce the impact here on terra firma with the energy usage of data centers. So, okay, that's great, but fine. But you've got power, but then you also have to deal with the heat. But these are all things that are solvable with the right amount of people. And the reason why this part is the most interesting to me is not because of the validity of data centers in space, which I think that there could be totally that, but there's money. These billionaires are very interested in it, and they want to get involved in that. And if you want to build data centers in space, you need a lot of rockets, and you need big rockets, right? So that right there is, to me, of those categories that Mr. Isaacman brought up in the short term, is I think going to be the biggest factor in laying out the railroad tracks even more. SpaceX has done a really great job, and they will continue to accelerate that with Starship, because they've paved the way for all these other rockets and also all of these other payload companies to exist, and to have businesses, because SpaceX led the way there. So data centers in space, Zoltan, here we go. Maintenance, cooling, repairs, upgrades feel like way more issues than benefits. The energy part sounds like a marketing gig. I know, but and energy has a real cost. And then there's also the cost of, you have a server that goes bad in a data center here. They're hot swappable, right? They pop one out, they put another one in, and it repopulates, and it's back in part of like the their hypervisor world or whatever, right? I'm not a data center guy, but I play nerd on the weekends. That's a real potential. That's a real maintenance issue. But I don't know. And then, there's latency. You put something in low Earth orbit, especially put a massive structure in low Earth orbit, there's going to be drag. The space station has drag issues, right? And they need to boost that every so often. Well, these data centers that we're seeing in renders and stuff are like 10 times the size of the International Space Station. Like, what? You're putting a massive sail in low Earth orbit. If you put it up in, MEO or GEO, your latency is going to be so high, it can't really be used for something like, web traffic. Maybe you could do other operations there that don't require low latency, but so much of what we do online needs that low latency. So it's going to be interesting. If I was these billionaires, not to like, talk, the space industry out of some jobs, but like start lobbying for like smaller nuclear reactors or something to power these data centers, like Ashburn, Virginia needs its own nuclear reactor just for data centers. They are building so many, and it is really stressing the grid. And now they have to do add so much more infrastructure to maintain the power supply here that solar just can't supply. Batch processing would be a possible use case. Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of use cases, like, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of cold storage, right? That could be done, I guess, in space, maybe. I don't know. No, I think cold storage should be on Earth. But yeah, and it all comes down to AI and like pushing AI into space, Oh, regardless if it works or not, there's people with a lot of money that want to take a swing at it. And so I think that's good. Even if it doesn't work out, it's going to get more investment into launch, which is good for everybody. So, which hopefully can make investment by these drug companies, entice them to make greater investment in research and manufacturing in pharmaceuticals in space, drugs that are hard to make here in 1G and that are better to make in microgravity. So yeah. Okay. So, but Jared, I need to actually load it up really quick, but Jared did have something else very interesting to say about my dear friend, the Discovery space shuttle. I'm gonna have to jump ahead into this really quick, so I know roughly where he talks about this. So pardon me while we.
Jared Isaacman, the new NASA administrator, he was confirmed late last week after being renominated.
We're not gonna watch this whole thing. I really don't want CNBC to like flag me because that would make me sad. I believe it's around here though. Let me check.
In Washington and elsewhere for at least a couple of months now, and that is this Discovery shuttle.
Oh, okay. I was not so far off. Okay, let's back her up a little bit. Okay, so he's asked about Discovery. Okay, so before I show his answer, okay, Ted Cruz really wants Space Shuttle Discovery in Texas. A lot of people, me included, do not want that to happen. Not because I don't think Texas deserves a space shuttle, right? Okay, fine. Texas deserves a space shuttle. Well, I'm sorry, Texas. You had your chance in like 2010 or 2011 to make that happen, and you didn't because you didn't have the money, right? You were one of the finalists for a space shuttle, and you could not come up with the money to transport it and to take care of it. That's the end of the story, right? You had your opportunity then, you missed it. There were 3 shuttles. One went to Florida for launch. One went to LA because that's where they built them. And the other one went to Washington, D.C. because it's the Smithsonian and it's one of the most traveled places in the country. And NASA figured, well, we should put one there because a lot of people are going to see it. And not as many people go to Houston, Texas for tourism, okay? You also couldn't, like, the biggest thing you could not afford it, right? Okay. I'm sorry, I get a little heated about that. So they fly it to Dulles Airport on the 747, go and swap it out with Enterprise, which was the drop test shuttle, and that one went to New York because also the Intrepid came up with the money to transport it and to house it on the flight deck of the USS Intrepid in New York City, which is also an incredibly massive tourism place. So if you go to New York City or you go to Washington, D.C., like 2 big tourism hotbeds, not like the New York, I'm not saying like Washington, D.C. is like Miami, Florida or something, or in terms of tourism, but like it's up there. People can see a space shuttle, right? And learn about the space shuttle. So, okay, there's 4 shuttles, right? Okay, if you go into Enterprise, but you didn't go to space. Okay, so now Ted Cruz gets a rider in the Big Beautiful Bill to get us essentially a historic human spacecraft to Houston, Texas, so that they can honor the people. He just wants it. He wants it. He had his own reasons, but he wants a space shuttle there. But then there's been a lot of resistance to this move for a variety of reasons. One, it'd be frivolous spending. Like, it would be wasting hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars to move the space shuttle. One, two, there's pretty much no way to move it without breaking it down into multiple pieces, which there's no guarantee they'd be able to put it back together well, right? So there's no way that they can't really tow it from where it is in an effective manner, right? To get it basically get it to the Potomac River and put it on a barge and then take it across the ocean down to Houston. Okay, so but Jared here made a very interesting pivot. He before he became administrator, he shook Ted Cruz's hand and he said basically something to the effect that we'll get Discovery down to Texas. But here is this piece de resistance of Mr. Isaacman.
Something that's been a controversy percolating in Washington and
I can't hear it.
Elsewhere.
Man, OBS is driving me crazy. Sometimes these files I can't hear the audio of them.
For at least a couple of months now, and that is this Discovery shuttle controversy and the relocation of that spacecraft. Your thoughts?
Okay, this is one and certainly the space community has been following very closely. Well, first let's go back to the Working Family Tax Credit Act, formerly known as the One Big Beautiful Bill, a massive investment that went into America's human spaceflight program, authorizations through the Artemis II mission, plus up funding for our human spaceflight operations at the International Space Station, and then there was also an allocation to return a historic spacecraft to Johnson Space Center in Houston. That's our Human Spaceflight Center of Excellence in Texas. My predecessor has already selected a vehicle, the former acting administrator. My job now is to make sure that we can undertake such a transportation within the budget dollars that we have available, and of course, most importantly, ensuring the safety of the vehicle. And if we can't do that, you know what? We've got spacecraft that are going around the moon with Artemis 2, 3, 4, and 5. One way or another, we're going to make sure the Johnson Space Center gets their historic spacecraft right where it belongs.
All right. So he's like, hey, maybe it won't be Discovery. Maybe it will be one of these Orions, which makes way more sense, right? Now, these Orions, they're supposed to be reflown, a couple times. The Artemis II Orion is slated to fly again, like Artemis 5, I think. And then Artemis 3 would be Artemis 6, and Artemis 4. Like Artemis 4 would be I think they're making 3 Orions, and they're gonna each supposed to fly like 4 or 5 times, allegedly. We'll see. But who's not to say that we don't say to Houston, hey, you know what? You're going to get the Artemis 3 capsule when it retires, which is actually a very cool artifact to have. It would be the capsule that brought the first crew back to the lunar surface since 1972. Like, that's a very big deal. It would have flown 3 or 4 times over like 10 or 12 years, maybe even greater. So like, they're not going to see this thing until the 2030s or 2040s, right? But it'd be a very meaningful historic artifact for spaceflight, and it can fit on a truck, and you could drive it down to Texas and just put it where you want, give it a beautiful exhibit at a way smaller cost than the space shuttle, and arguably, if it does go to the moon, however many times it ends up going to the moon, it would be probably, depending on who's looking at it, like way cooler of an artifact than a space shuttle because it went to the moon. It sent people to the moon. Like, so I think that there's a really valid argument about why like an Orion should go to Houston from a cost standpoint, from a notoriety standpoint. Like, Senator Cruz, let's please use our heads here, you know. And also you're it's like a future looking artifact, if anything, right? Like Orion, whether you like it or not, like it's gonna take Cruz to the moon through Artemis 5 at least. We know that. A lot of people thought that SLS was going to be dead this year. It's not dead. It's anything from dead and is likely going to get even more money. So thank you, Jared, for saying that. I do recommend, man, this cough is killing me. I do recommend you go and find the CNBC interview he did last week. There's like random little tidbits. It's 90%. I mean, Jared, I got to give him credit, man. He's a PR pro. Like, he can talk around any question that comes his way. But he said the right things, and I'm thankful for him for doing that. I am trying to find, I swear that there was a photo of him and Senator Cruz. Let me see if I can find the article really quick. Or there was a statement. Like, it was very overtly about Jared bringing Discovery to Houston. Give me 1 second. Yeah, the bill was originally called the Bring the Shuttle Home Act, which... Fun fact, Space Shuttle never went through Houston. Like, the physical Space Shuttle had never went through Houston. Yeah, there's the astronauts lived in Houston, Mission Control's in Houston, a lot of people who worked on the shuttle were in Houston, but a physical Space Shuttle never went to Houston. Space Shuttle was in Los Angeles or Florida, or, you know, Southern California and Florida, and that was it, right? You would get refurbed and reworked. You know, out in Southern California, occasionally land out there, and then flew out of Florida, right? So bringing a shuttle home to Houston is not very accurate. I'm looking, but I won't dig it up here. I can't find it, but there was an agreement, public agreement, that Jared was going to support moving shuttle. But now that he's in the chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Senator, that's might not be in our country's best interest. Looks like I don't know if my Discord notification went out to everybody, but okay. So, and while we were here, it looks like we have the first orbital launch of 2026 that has happened. Did it happen already? Yep, it did. Sorry, I missed that. About 15 minutes ago, a Falcon 9 flew Cosmo. So sorry we missed that. Hopefully you guys were able to tune in to that flight. So that's been the kind of the highlights of Jared's first couple weeks, which is, needless to say, very exciting for all of us. Let's now hop into predictions of 2026. I gotta say, before we hop into 2026, I would love to look at 2025. So, Tim Dodd puts out every year his space flight predictions poll on Twitter. I gotta say, Tim does a great job. He really does do a good job with this. And you can tell that the questions are asked very carefully. And I wanted to go over here and look at some of them with you all. Look at last year, and then look at this next year. Okay. So he had some interesting questions here. So it's just, there's not many. So let's just go through them here. How many times will SpaceX launch Starship in 2025? Everybody, 50% of the audience voted for 5 to 8. I believe it was launched 5 times this year. So people were on the money. So, okay. Good start. Number 2. Will SpaceX successfully catch the Starship upper stage in 2025? 90% said yes. Very sad. That did not happen. People were being very bullish on Starship upper stage. Moving along, will SpaceX deploy a functional payload with Starship in 2025? No, they did not. So, okay, audience is so far 1 for 3. Okay, 1 for 3. Let's keep score here. All right, Nick, will refly Super Heavy? Yes, they did. They did do that. They did refly Super Heavy booster. Okay, we're 2 for 4 now. We're back. We're at 500. Okay. Oh no. Will SpaceX refly a Starship upper stage in 25? The audience said no. The audience was right. 3 for 6. Okay. 3 for 6. Am I doing this math right? We were. Oh God, TJ, now I have to count. 1 for 3. SpaceX refly Super Heavy booster. I missed that. Oh, we were 1 for 4. 2 for 5. 2 for 5. Okay, so we're 2 for 5. Will Rocket Lab launch Neutron 2025? Everyone said yes. It did not. Okay, we're 2 for 6. When will Sierra Space launch Dream Chaser? Everybody said Q3 2025. We're lucky if we'll see it in 2026. All right, we're 2 for 7. Will SLS survive 2025? No, it did. 2 for 8. 2 for 8 here. Oh boy. SLS got more funding in 2025, everybody. 2 for 8. How many crewed launches will Boeing Space's Starliner have with humans on board? 0. They had 1. 2 for 9. Okay. Blue Origin's New Glenn will blanket 25. Okay. 3 for 10. It did land and launch and land successfully. Will a European launch provider reach orbit 25? I don't believe anybody did. 3 for 11. What's the furthest milestone we'll see with Stoke Space's full vehicle stack? We did not get that. Everyone was wrong. 3 for 12. And how many orbital launch attempts will we see in 2025? I thought this was a bullish number. We were wrong again. 3 for 13. There were 330 launches this last year. I went and looked it up. Yeah, 330. According to Jonathan McDowell, who is kind of like the unofficial scorekeeper here of all rocket and satellite stats. So is that 3 for 13 or 3 for 14? Will Hubble servicing mission receive a green light in 2025? I mean, I kind of give this a bit of a push because he didn't become administrator. Oh, the Boeing crew flight test was 2024. Was it really? Oh my gosh. So we didn't even get a 3. I borked that, man. You're right. Okay, so we've all gotten 2 right. I'll retabulate in a second. You're 2. I don't know if we should count this one because Jared didn't become NASA administrator until the end of 2025, so we'll skip this one. How many times has SpaceX launched their Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy? People lowballed it. It was 165. 165. So miss. So how many questions were there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16, 15. 2 for 15. The audience scored a whopping 13 on their test. Big time fail. Okay. So, but great questions, Tim, last year. And again, this year, great questions. So, Yep, January 1st, 2026. All right, so here are the questions from this year, and I'm curious from you guys what you all think. I'll tell you what I think is going to happen, and we'll see how accurate I am next year. How many times will SpaceX launch Starship in 2026? I think 6 to 9 is fair, but it's going to be like a really heavy second half of the year if they don't blow the pad up, which I don't think they will. So 6 to 9, I agree with this sentiment. And I believe these check marks are what I voted for. Yeah, I think that's what this is. There's no pip here that shows this, so fine. Will SpaceX successfully launch a Starship upper stage in 2026? I catch a successful upper stage in 2026. I say that they'll have an attempt. They're definitely going to make an attempt. Will they catch it? I don't know. They'll make an attempt. Will SpaceX deploy a functional payload? Yes, I think that it's obviously a yes now with the fact that they were able to get the Pez dispenser working. They'll fly Starlinks this year. No, I do not think they'll refly an upper stage. I think if they catch one, it's going to come back kind of wrecked. And it's going to need a kind of a teardown to best understand. When will NASA launch Artemis 3? Artemis 2. The window for Artemis 2 is in February, but you know, this stuff gets pushed all the time. I think March is a better timeline. What's the furthest milestone Rocket Lab will reach with Neutron in 2026? I'm bullish here. I'm going to say they launch orbit and landing. What? No way. I think that they're going to launch in Q4. I think that in November we'll see a launch. Will Sierra Space launch Dream Chaser in 2026? I say no. I think that thing might be dead. I hate to say that, but not looking good. Will SLS Block 1B be canceled or altered in any way in 20? No, it won't. No. It's being built, or it's being developed. I don't see it canceled. Block 1B will fly. How many crewed launches will Boeing Space's Starliner have with humans on board? I said 1, and that might be bullish, but it's probably 0. How many times will Blue Origin... They are going to fly an uncrewed launch, a cargo-only launch this year. We know that. NASA's like, you got to fly this thing uncrewed. Flawless mission to the space station. We're going to use it as a cargo mission before you put people back on it. So I think that one is going to be successful, and they will put a crew on it. But honestly, I should have said 0. I should have said 0 because say that when is that mission? Cargo Starliner. When is Cargo Starliner? April 2026. Okay, so let's say it goes off without a hitch in April. Yeah, I don't think that they can move fast. No, I should have said 0 there. I don't think that they can get a crew assigned and then fly it by the end of the year. So no, I do not. I amend my vote here. I should have said 0. How many times will Blue Origin launch New Glenn in 2026? I said 3 to 4. Less than 2. Come on now. It flew twice this past year. And it landed on the second time. Who's saying less than 2? Come on now. Will Blue Origin refly New Glenn booster in 2026? Yes, they have a booster that they've caught. I see no reason why it won't fly again. Will a new European launch provider reach orbit in 2026? I'm going to say yes. Yes, this is the year. This is the year. What's the furthest milestone? We'll see with Stoke Space's Nova rocket in 2026. I mean, I said launch last year. Didn't launch, but it's going to launch. I think it's going to launch this year. Their first payload is with their first launch is with Astroforge, who is working on their payload. And I'll just say that there's no signs of them not flying this year from everything I've heard. So Astroforge is pushing ahead to deliver their payload to Stoke. And Stoke leadership are pushing for launch this year. So will it be successful? I don't know, but I think they're going to press the big red button. Would love to hear. Do you guys think Stoke's going to launch this year? That so far to me is the hardest one. The rest of these, to me, are kind of easy. I think the audience is going to do much better this year. Will we see any other rocket options to launch Orion to the moon for the Artemis program come forward in 2026? No, I do not think so. It's very maybe possible that you get a New Glenn 9x4 expendable, I think. But what we need to see is in orbit refueling working before that's really looked at. That's what it's going to take for Starship to fly Orion, or anything to fly Orion. But like basically all the new architectures are hinging on in-space refueling. Tim Dodd said on stream he thinks Stoke will launch. I think Stoke will launch. And Tim's really close with those guys. So if he's saying that, it's probably true. He's seen the hardware up close and everything. So I believe Tim. But I don't think we're going to see any real option for Orion to fly. New Glenn 9x4 is not going to fly this year. We might see it, I think, at the end of next year, at the end of 2027. So that's really the only other vehicle that could do it. I don't see SpaceX like creating like a Frankenstein starship to fly in Orion. So that's really the only rocket. How many orbital launch attempts will we see in 2026 around the world? Okay, and he's got here. There were 330. I think 331 to 370 is doable. Not so much because of America's launch cadence, but China. I mean, holy cow. China's the green line here. Okay, Russia's the red. Okay, their heyday was the 70s and 80s here. But China is ramping up. Okay, this is a very confusing table, but this column here is China. Okay, I'll just follow my mouse all the way to the bottom. Okay, in 2022, they had 64 launches. In 2023, 67. 2024, 68. Okay, a little bit more. And then what? 68 to 93 in 2025. And they've got like 5 different companies trying to do like their own Starship / Falcon 9 clones that are going to be flying this year and next year. So I think it's super possible that China breaks the like 100 in 2026. So yeah, we might see a little bit marginally more from the United States, but China, man. U.S. had 181 orbital launch attempts this year. I think we went 181 for 181, if I remember right. Electrons cadence is picking up. Vulcan. I hope Vulcan flies more. I think SpaceX is going to SpaceX. I think that this Falcon 9 launch cadence is absolutely bonkers. And I don't necessarily know if that's really going to go up that much this year. We got a couple more Starship launches, but China is what's going to, from a percentage standpoint, really make a jump. Will future Hubble servicing missions receive a green light in 2025 because Rick Isaacman being NASA administrator? I say no, because they need to get Congress to pay for that. And they don't have money earmarked for that this year. So he may lobby for it. But I don't know if I don't think we're going to see that this year. I would like to see that. Rhodey's saying here, and he's right about Falcon. It'll be hard for Falcon to fly too much more in a year than it already is. I think fuel logistics are a slight bottleneck. Yeah. It's flying like 3 to 4 times a week. Boy, you think Falcon fuel logistics are going to be bottleneck? Wait for Starship. Man, we're going to have to just I don't know where we're gonna get the propellant to fly that thing at scale, but we in SpaceX will. Good luck. I mean, that's a whole other like industry that's gonna have to like literally scale at a crazy level. How many times will SpaceX launch their Falcon 9/Heavy in 2026? I said 165 or less. To Rhodey's point, I don't see them really going up more. If anything, nah, maybe not in this year. But if anything, next year, Falcon 9, 2027 Falcon 9 launches are going to decrease because they're going to try to move Starlink flights to Starship. One, because of V3 Starlink is bigger, is more capable, and can only fly in Starship at scale. They want to get they want to get reps with Starship. They want to start getting that thing flying. And Gwen has said that, I mean, there's some definite cases for keeping Falcon 9 online longer. But Gwen has publicly said that Starship is going to put Falcon out of business. Definitely Falcon Heavy. So, but Starship really needs to fly at scale. Oh no, leader, my comments are being filtered into all chat for some reason. Let's see here. I'm not seeing leader than you in the chat. Leader than you. I'm sorry. I'm not seeing you in the chat. I'm not quite sure if you're watching from shorts or what. And I don't even know how to watch the stream vertically by choice, by the way. You can see all my shorts recommendations here. Not one of them being... Let me click on the I need more space. So I'm like in it here. How do I watch vertical? He means live chat versus top chat. Let me see all messages. Oh! Okay, man, leader than you. Dude, why am I not seeing you? Okay, well, clearly I have to config this. Let me look at your chat messages really quick. Leader than you. Thank you for all your messages here. Ted Roos can kick rocks. Okay, yeah, I think we can all agree on that one in regards to Discovery. Vulcan has a heavy config with 3 cores. Possible it can loft an Orion payload. Yeah, it can. But, like, is Vulcan heavy really... Yeah, the bot needs to grab live chat, not top chat. Rhodey, you're right. I don't see Vulcan heavy happening before New Glenn 9x4. It'll be hard for Falcon to fly. Okay, we said this one. Leader than you, because my chats are hella low quality. I'm watching for my 4K TV. Oh, wow. Okay. How big am I? My Twitter interface looks weird here. Oh, you're watching on Twitter? Yeah, dude. Like, watching... I was streaming to Twitter, and I stopped. I'm not streaming anymore to Twitter. It's just not looking good. Yeah, I mean, you can see live on X, I guess, or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, but it's I don't know, man. Now you can watch YouTube videos. Now everybody looking at my hi. You can watch YouTube videos like within Twitter, but you can't like engage with them, and you can't also go to YouTube. It's completely bonkers. I wish I could start it and then jump to the YouTube app, but it doesn't. They don't want you to leave X. I feel like this is breaking the YouTube terms of service somehow. because they're taking the M3UH stream and pulling it into Twitter, which is not cool. Nikita, I think that Mr. and Mrs. Google are going to give you a phone call. Okay. Let's move along here. TJ isn't a small guy. I am not. I am almost like, yeah. What, with me being tiny, maybe. Yeah. I'm 6'3". Wiki said 6 cores. Is that right? Six cores for Vulcan? Mojo, if you can elaborate on what you meant by that, that would be cool, because I don't know. Teacher McPherson asks, where am I? I don't know. I need... Well, I'm going to monitor the chat now from my phone, because my app clearly is not pulling all chats, just top chats. Oh, there you are. Okay, Dieter. Oh, okay. Oh, that's you there. Okay, I see you, dude. Okay. All right, we got some good questions here. Aren't ULA's days numbered anyway? With defense contracts being increasingly to other companies, it seems ULA's main income streams are now dying. Yeah, I talked about that earlier. I mean, James, I don't know, man. It's tough. It's tough. What do they have going for them? Okay, well, they've got a great track record. Okay. If you're flying national security missions and you have $1 billion payload and you cannot take any chances of this thing blowing up, because you need to put this spy satellite over a very specific place on this planet to listen to very bad people to make sure they don't attack the United States, you're going to pay the extra money to a SpaceX or ULA to make sure it's exactly where you want it, right? ULA will get it there, and it'll put it right where it needs to go. Falcon, with its more powerful upper stage, and it doesn't have the ability to quite deep throttle like Centaur can. They often require their payloads to put them right in their final orbit, and maybe your satellite, your national security satellite, can't do that. So they can put it right where they need it, and that might be worth the extra couple $100 million, so you know that it's gonna get there exactly where you need it when you need it. Historically, they've been able to do that. Vulcan's launch cadence is not really where it needs to be. Yeah, Dieter, we started about an hour and a half ago. But thanks for being here. And oh, hey Jeb. So did Tory actually retire, or just doing a lateral? He resigned, not retired. He resigned and took a whole new job at Blue Origin. Let me go through. Let me finish off our predictions here, because we got some great tangents we can go off on. Will we see SpaceX Starship orbital refueling demonstration between 2 Starships in 2026? I said no. 51% of people said yes. I don't think we're going to see it. I think that what we're going to see is like an experiment in the payload bay demonstrating it. You know, maybe like a miniaturized version of the docking system or something, and like some kind of simulation with that. But I don't think the Cape Tower is going to be ready and they're going to have only one launch pad from Starbase. And what it comes down to is propellant. Like, they launch a Starship, okay, and they get it in orbit. Well, they largely exhaust the tank farm, and they need to top it off again. So, okay, like, let's magical scenario. You have 2 full stack Starships to do this test. Okay, let's role play here. First launch, success. You put it in you put it in Leo. That Starship is ready to go. Okay, your tank farm's empty. You got to top it off. That takes a couple days for them to do that. And then you stack your second Starship, and that's going to be an instantaneous launch window, just like ISS. They've hit T0 right when they've wanted to. Like, they've called their shot before, so it has happened before. So they call their shot, all right, and then okay, they hit it, launch, they rendezvous. I think rendezvous can happen. But I think it's the in-space rendezvous and docking, I think is actually going to be the easier bit. It's going to be the ground logistics and V3 Starship. They have to test that, like they have to test this rocket all over again. You know, there's so many new components with the new Starship and Super Heavy. You know, they're not flying a whole new rocket. It's like, you know, a lot of heritage knowledge and tech, and they're you know, Raptor 3 and all these things, you know. I'm hesitant to say that. You know, I think that they're going to fly Starlink. I think that they're going to put some payloads up. I think that they're going to attempt a landing of Starship. They'll catch Super Heavy. I think they're going to try to catch Starship. And when I say they're going to not successfully catch Starship, I don't think it's going to blow up like against the tower. I'm just, you know, maybe I'm more hesitant. Maybe I'm being too cautious for that. But orbital refueling, I just see it being maybe like a payload experiment. Okay, let's get back to the next question. Will we see the first commercial space station in 2026? I think Vast is the only one that's really the player here. They're building their flight. Where is it? I think it's this guy here. Yeah, Haven. Yeah, so they have their Flight Haven 1 that they're building. So, and that's gonna fly on a Falcon. So I think that Vast. I said yes, but no astronauts. Yes. My runny nose is coming back. Rhodey, kind of going back to Starship refueling. He says, I think the mating process is a bit more involved than we might think it is. They have to line up in multiple planes compared to, say, ISS mating. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more complicated, man. Their advantage is that they can control both vehicles, right? ISS is like fixed, and you just have to come up on there. Obviously, it's with the docking adapter. You know, there's only one point of contact, really, technically, where Starship, at least the way they're drawing it up, there's like 4. So, like, do you do like? There's got to be some kind of soft capture mechanism, I would think, and then they would do a hard capture. Yeah, Mojo. I'm all in on Haven 1 flying maybe Q4. Which would be dope. And going back, they have to deal with boil off. Yeah, I think with a test you might not need to worry about that, but on boil off. Okay, you have a bare bones V3 Starship that's going up there. in a parking orbit, right? That your tanker starship will rendezvous with, I guess. I mean, I don't know how. I don't know what type of starship it'll be, but regardless, you have a starship that goes up there to rendezvous with it. Is it hot gas thrusters? Like, how long can a starship stay in orbit that's like not fully insulated, right? What's that boil off look like? I don't know. I don't know, but it'll get stainless steel will get pretty hot. It energy transfer with that is pretty good. I'm gonna make sure I'm not missing any messages here. Leader Than You says, watch it be one Starliner with a bunch of cameras and sensors to go check things out. For Haven 1? If that's what you're referring to, I think that they would fly a dragon to it, if anything. But I doubt that they're going to. He also says, oh yeah, it'll take 5 launches to fill that gas tank. Yeah, I don't see them actually like topping off a starship. I think they're gonna go there and go, if they're gonna go up and kiss, maybe transfer some propellant and then call it a day. Anything more might be too ambitious. All right, and he's got one more here. How many lunar landers will successfully land on the moon in 2026? I'm bullish on my landers. Okay. I've got, when I say my landers, okay, so Blue Moon is not my lander. I'm not affiliated with that at all. But I think Blue Moon will land. I think Blue Moon's going to stick it. They've been collecting a lot of data with New Shepard. They've got some of the smartest people in the world working on this problem. They're paying them really good money. They've got all the resources in the world. They stuck New Glenn on the second landing, second launch. I think, and Blue Moon is a big lander. Like, it's got a large base. And its center of mass is pretty low. Like, I'm feeling good about that one landing. And then, because I have to be, I'm bullish on Astrobotic sticking it, because I Need More Moon is on there. They're flying Griffin to the moon. It was supposed to fly again. It was supposed to fly like in November. Well, we're in January here. Looks like it's not going to fly till Q2 at the earliest on a Falcon Heavy. But I want that one to work. So TJ is going to say 2. I say 2. Hey, look, most people think 2. I'm bullish on that. I'm not sure is who else is flying to the moon this year? Okay, space.com. Give it to me, baby. Starship. Okay, Blue Moon. Haven 1. Oh, China's flying another Chang'e. Okay, I should have said 3. Because they're going to stick that. You know they're going to stick that. They've stuck them all. All right, I should have said 3. I'm not aware of any other American companies flying to the moon this year. Okay, so Firefly is flying Blue Ghost, Intuitive Machines. Boy. And there's Griffin. Boy, I think 3. Now I should have really done some research. Well, 2 might not be wrong. So that was pretty decent guesses there, I think. Okay, so let's get to some more questions. That's the Q&A. Viper got shelved. Yeah. Yeah, look at iSpace. Yeah. Completely agree. Leader Than You says it'd be funny if Starline was forced to be part of the program. Blue is gonna win. They got Tory now. I mean, they're in a really good position now, man. They're in a really good position. Another great set of questions by Tim. I believe he's got more this year. The community absolutely failed last year, but I think a lot of these predictions are we're gonna nail it much better this year. There were only 9 failures this year. Failures to orbit by country. This is always fun. Okay. Who had the most this past year? US, we had 2. China had 2. And then AU and D each had 1. I don't know. Austria? Denmark? I'm guessing. But oh, India had a failure too. Moving on. Oh, we still got Dieter up here. Oh yeah, the poor Aussies. Australian one failed. Boy, tough. Tough. All right, let's move on. Actually, I need to pull the media. So let me pull this last video up on Artemis. Okay, so I have to say that they're getting better at this, but the NASA press secretary, Bethany Stevens, has been doing these This Week at NASA updates on her X account that kind of go over what happened that week at NASA. NASA used to have this really highly polished, really well done YouTube, multi-platform show called Space to Ground, which, by the way, Space to Ground is like the comms link between space and ground, like what the NASA calls that. Like, hey, Houston, this is Space to Ground. Or are you on Space to Ground? I can't remember how the nomenclature is, but like that's a real term. And it with Doge and everything, it got axed. Unfortunately, because it was a really great show. Honestly, they did a great job. I tuned in almost every week to watch it. But I guess its costs, they didn't feel its costs warranted it. So they've then been now using Bethany Stevens to essentially do this show, but just in like her talking in front of the NASA backdrop. I'll say she's gotten better with this. The first couple were a little rough, but she's kind of seems like she's gotten a bit of a groove. But we finally got like an actual update on Artemis, which is kind of unfortunate that we have to watch. Like, not that it's not unfortunate we have to watch these videos. Like I still watch them. I want to hear what's being said, but I wish that we got more. There's more information on like what's happening, more details to Artemis, rather than people like Philip Sloss, who does God's work here, It's just like he's like doing the ring watcher work, but for Artemis of like figuring out for SLS, like figuring out what the progress is of the rockets and all these different locations. I know he's very big on the Artemis Discord and all that, trying to figure out what is actually happening. Because we don't get the updates from NASA. But let's watch her update really quick because we got some good brief updates from her on what's going on with Artemis.
We're hitting the ground running at NASA just 2 days into 2026. This year promises to be an exciting one as we continue delivering groundbreaking science, advancing aeronautics research, and pushing human spaceflight forward.
So much. What's the word I'm looking for? Talking points.
Artemis II continues to make steady progress, with rollout now less than 2 weeks away.
Rollout date. We had not gotten a rollout date. Now less than 2 weeks away. Awesome.
Once the vehicle reaches the launch pad, teams will begin final integrated launch testing of the entire system, including propellant tanking of the whole rocket core stage and upper stage. This testing provides critical data, and if needed, the vehicle may be rolled back into the hangar to address any findings. While the Artemis II launch window opens as early as February 6th, the mission management team will assess flight readiness across the spacecraft, launch infrastructure, and crew and operations teams before selecting a date to attempt launch. The window extends across multiple opportunities through April. As always, our top priority is the safety of our astronauts, Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy, as they contribute to our next giant leap. We'll continue to share updates as milestones are reached, and we're looking ahead to a historic year for the American space program. Follow along for more, and see you next week.
See you, Bethany. I hope that we get some kind of calendar. I don't know if we're gonna get it. We haven't even gotten, like, with Artemis 1, there was like a launch window calendar that came out. We haven't gotten one for Artemis 2. Nothing official. So people have done some very. That music's gonna ding me. I know. Let me check the stream. Did they get me already? Am I still live? I'm still live. Check my email. Sometime I've once streamed with music, and then they sent YouTube sent me an email during the stream, and then I didn't see it, and then it was very sad. Nope, no emails. I think I'm safe for now, Brody. Let me cut back to me full screen so I'm not just. Okay, so yeah, we got the updates, but I really do hope that we. You are still alive, Baron. Am I wait, Baron? I want to know what that's about, man. They Dune reference. Oh, I missed me. I have to go and watch Dune again. We just need more information. We just need more information on Artemis 2 timings and everything. I didn't apply for the social credential, media credential, or whatever. There's other people who would do a better job than me out there, but there's really not that much information. But hopefully, Jared's only 1 week into this, and it would be great to get that information out so that the media could cover it and promote it, because I talk about Artemis 2 all the time with my friends and family, and people are like, "Oh, we're going back to the moon." I'm like, "Guys, yes, we're going back to the moon." Like I don't know how much more to sex it up, I know that NASA is trying to bring more mainstream, like, influencers and stuff to the launch. A lot of space influencers were not selected to go, which, depending on how you look at it, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. it's like, oh, bummer. You didn't pick people to come out who were huge supporters of the program and informing the public and trying to be good balanced advocates. There's this one woman who I can't recall her name, but she didn't get selected, and I was just like, man, she's one of the biggest space influencers there are. But yeah, I don't know. And also like the public knowledge is fleeting. I can't be too down on it yet, because if it doesn't fly till March, like, that's 2 months. That's an eternity in the media landscape. Like, once it's at the pad and things are lining up, then hopefully that there's a really good press plan to hype it up, in the weeks leading up to the launch. That's really when it's going to matter. Right now, it doesn't really matter. I'm sure when we were landing on the moon, like, I guess maybe people were paying attention to it, but like probably weren't really paying attention to it until Neil, Buzz, and Mike were on the pad, ready to go. Yes, Astra Alexandra is who I was referring to. Marcus would be great there. I love Marcus, but I'm not sure if he even bothered applying. We did a bunch of press around the Artemis Accords emissions here in Canada 2 years ago. Yeah. And that's a big deal. I mean, I don't know. The American media is like so manic. So if it's not happening right now, getting our attention is kind of a little tough. So we know that when what some things that we know will happen, though, whether you like it or not. Right around launch, the president is going to make a big deal out of it. So that will get his base and all of his media affiliates on board to cover the launch. So that demographic will be very aware of the mission, in particular if it's successful. I'm hoping that we get more mainstream entertainment. And also the other half of the coin is like, people may not really care until they start seeing pictures and video from the moon. So we'll give a more deeper assessment on that. I just really, really, really hope they fly this thing during the day. Really get them maxed out their money's worth from a PR perspective. If you watch my previous streams, or I did a video on it too, talking about how America missed Artemis 1 is because they launched it in the middle of the night, and the coverage for it like really was slow. I was basically, not to toot my own horn, but like getting a whole bunch of exclusives on releasing footage, because NASA would release clips on images.nasa.gov or in other different places or on the internet that I was constantly scouring for, and then repackaging them, cleaning up or whatever, and posting them on Twitter, right? And the official NASA accounts weren't doing that. And I was just like, what are we doing here? They need to be the ones doing that. And I was doing it because obviously I'm so passionate about it, but I want to see a fire under them to cut this thing up and promote it in as many different ways that they can. That would be what's in the best interest of NASA. But with that, friends, I've talked about everything. I did not promote voting, and because of that, nobody voted. So no pizza this week. I'm sorry, them's the rules. So next stream, hopefully you guys do some voting. Maybe I promote it. I don't know. I'm torn on the voting. If it is a feature worth doing, maybe the payoff needs to be better. Not that the pizza isn't great. I'm sure people like pizza, but John Kraus will help with that too. Yeah, John's like he's got he's got like an associate media specialist or something like that. I was thinking for voting. Okay, this is kind of twisted, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyways. I was thinking about getting like a a Nerf gun. I'm happy you enjoyed your pizza, Mojo. Hope it was cheesy or pepperoni or whatever you like on that. I'm hoping that okay, I was thinking about getting a Nerf gun. Okay. And I would like put a Raspberry Pi or attach something, have some kind of trigger associated with it, right? And trying to figure out a way to like get you all to be in charge of like shooting it at me when I least expect it, and it could be some interesting comedic humor. I don't know, but like I don't know if that's really a good thing to do. I don't know. I was trying to think of something that the audience could engage with and vote and make for a weird moment. But I want to not be super cute or weird about it, because people are like, why do you want to watch TJ like he's does these weird bits? I love a good bit though. So with that, folks, it's almost 11 o'clock my time. We've been running for almost 2 hours. So thank you so much for hanging. I look forward to doing this again next week, and I have a video that I'm actually gonna shoot it probably right after this, that I'll release in a couple days. So that'll also be fun too. So thanks everybody for, sounds like an excellent Doug video. I need to watch Doug. Silly string shooter. Yeah, that might be better than silly string shooter might be better than Nerf gun. These are very good ideas, people. Let's keep brainstorming it. You know, the trigger mechanism is doable. I actually have I'll have an extra switch bot. So like if I could set it up where it's like they've got like the streamer, and then something triggers the switch and it goes, you know, it hits me. Mirror from the sky. Okay, all fun. Thanks for hanging out, friends. I'm gonna sign off. Have a great week, and I will see y'all next time. All right, bye.